The wind howled over the small mountain village as snowflakes danced wildly in the air. The night was cold, quiet, and dangerous. Most of the houses had their lights off and smoke rose gently from chimneys. It was one of those nights when no one wanted to step outside. But inside one small wooden house, a little girl named Mira sat by the window, staring at the falling snow. Her mother was away, working at the hospital in the nearby town. Her father was out searching for firewood. Mira was alone, except for her loyal canine dog named Rex. Rex was a large German shepherd with calm eyes and thick fur that made him look strong and kind at the same time. Mira trusted Rex more than anyone. He had been trained to assist rescue teams in the nearby mountains, but after getting injured during a mission, he was retired and brought home by Mira's father. Even now, Rex never forgot his training. He was alert and protective, always staying near Mira's side. The storm outside grew stronger. The wind rattled the windows and the wooden door creaked with every gust. Mira wrapped herself in a blanket and patted the floor beside her. Rex lay down and rested his head on her lap. His warm breath comforted her and she smiled softly. Suddenly, the sound of a distant explosion broke through the quiet. Mira jumped in fright. Rex's ears stood up. It came from the forest beyond the hills, a few miles away. It didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like something heavy had crashed. Mira whispered, "Rex, what was that?" Rex growled lowly, his eyes focused on the window. Then, without warning, the lights in the house went out. Everything went dark. Mira gasped and clutched Rex's fur tightly. The storm outside seemed louder now. She called out softly, "Papa?" But there was no answer. Minutes passed and fear crept into her heart. Then Rex suddenly stood up. He walked to the door, sniffed the air, and barked once, sharp and clear. Mira knew that bark. It meant danger or something unusual. "Rex, what is it?" she asked, trembling. He barked again and pawed at the door. It was as if he wanted her to follow. Mira hesitated. It was too cold outside, and her father had told her never to go out at night during a storm. But Rex seemed sure. He looked at her with deep, urgent eyes. Mira put on her coat, hat, and boots. She took the flashlight from the shelf and opened the door. The cold wind hit her face immediately, but Rex stood firm, waiting for her. Together they stepped out into the storm. Snow covered everything. The ground was slippery and the trees looked like white ghosts in the darkness. Mira could barely see ahead, but Rex kept walking with confidence, his paws sinking deep into the snow. "Rex, where are we going?" she asked, her voice almost lost in the wind. The dog didn't stop. He moved fast, occasionally turning back to make sure Mira was following. His eyes glowed faintly under the flashlight beam, full of purpose. After walking for some time, Mira realized they were heading toward the forest path. Her father often took that path to collect firewood, but it was dangerous in heavy snow. The wind blew harder now and the flashlight beam flickered. Mira's heart pounded. She started to worry about her father. What if he hadn't come back because something happened to him? Rex suddenly barked again and ran ahead. Mira hurried after him, her small boots sinking deep in the snow. The forest was dark and silent except for the storm. She could barely see Rex's tail through the thick snowflakes. After a few more minutes, Rex stopped near a fallen tree. He sniffed the ground, then started digging at the snow. Mira rushed to his side, breathing hard. The snow was deep there, and she saw something sticking out from under it, a piece of fabric. Her heart skipped a beat. It looked like her father's jacket. "Papa!" she cried, dropping to her knees. Rex barked and kept digging. Mira used her small hands to help. Slowly, they uncovered a man lying half buried in the snow. It was her father. His face was pale and he wasn't moving. Mira shook his shoulder. "Papa, wake up!" He didn't respond. Tears filled her eyes. She remembered what her mother had told her about cold weather and how people could freeze if left outside too long. Rex barked again, louder this time, and nudged the man's shoulder with his nose. He then turned toward the village, barking repeatedly as if calling for help. But the houses were far away, and no one could hear them through the storm. Mira had to think fast. She couldn't carry her father, and the snow was getting deeper. She hugged him tightly, crying softly, "Please wake up, Papa." Then Rex did something unexpected. He grabbed Mira's sleeve gently with his mouth and pulled her up. Then he walked in a circle around her father, sniffing and thinking. Finally, he ran a few steps toward the hill that led to the old ranger station. Mira recognized that place. It was an old wooden shelter used by forest rangers not too far from where they were. It had a fireplace and radio equipment. Maybe Rex wanted to go there. She looked at her father again, then at Rex. You want to bring help, right? Rex barked once. Mira nodded. Okay, I'll come. Rex started moving again, this time faster, leading her up the hill. The climb was hard. Mira slipped several times, but Rex kept looking back, waiting for her. His fur was covered in snow, but he moved with strength and focus. After what felt like forever, they reached the small wooden ranger station. Mira could barely feel her hands, but Rex ran straight to the door and barked loudly. The door was locked, but Mira saw a broken window on the side. She crawled through it carefully, followed by Rex. Inside, it was cold but safe from the wind. Mira found an old blanket and wrapped it around herself. Rex sniffed around and found a metal box. Inside, it was a first aid kit, a flashlight, and most importantly, a working radio. Mira didn't know how to use it, but Rex barked, urging her to try. She pressed the button and spoke as her mother had taught her once. Help, please. My father is hurt in the forest. This is Mira from the village. Please help us. Static filled the air for a moment. Then a crackling voice replied, This is Ranger Post 3. Who is this? Say again, Mira cried out in relief. My father is hurt. He's near the old path. Please send help. The voice responded quickly. Stay where you are, little one. Help is coming.
Can you tell us how you got there?
Mira looked at Rex, who sat beside her, his tail wagging softly despite the storm outside. She smiled weakly and said, Rex brought me here. The ranger's voice came again, full of surprise. Rex? You mean the canine rescue dog? He's alive? Yes, Mira said, hugging the dog. He saved us. Outside, the wind continued to howl, but inside the small cabin, Mira felt safe for the first time that night. Rex lay down beside her, resting his head on her lap again. His eyes slowly closed, but he stayed alert. Mira whispered, You're my hero, Rex. The little girl didn't know that this was just the beginning. By morning, what Rex did next would leave everyone in the village completely stunned. The storm raged through the night while Mira and Rex waited inside the ranger station. The small cabin shook with every gust of wind. The windows were fogged and the sound of snow hitting the roof was endless. Mira held the radio tightly in her small hands. She was afraid that if she let go, the voice on the other end would vanish like a dream. The radio crackled again. Mira, are you still there? Stay calm, we're tracking your signal. Rescue team is on the way. Mira nodded, even though they couldn't see her. Please hurry. My father is still in the snow. He's not moving, the ranger's voice replied. We'll find him. Just stay inside and keep yourself warm. Rex stood beside her, his tail still, his body tense. He seemed to understand everything that was happening. His ears twitched at every sound outside. He had once been trained for these exact moments to guide, protect, and save. Even after years of rest, that instinct had never left him. Mira wrapped herself in a blanket and sat close to Rex for warmth. She could feel his heartbeat and his steady breathing. It gave her courage. Her eyes began to close, but she forced herself to stay awake. Rex suddenly lifted his head. He stood up and walked to the door, sniffing the air again. He barked once. What is it? Mira asked softly. He looked back at her, then at the door. He barked again, sharper this time. Mira hesitated. The rangers had told her to stay inside, but Rex seemed restless. Something was wrong. She grabbed the flashlight and slowly opened the door. Cold wind rushed in and snowflakes flew into her face. Rex stepped out first, his paws making deep prints in the snow. He sniffed the ground and looked toward the forest. The snow had slowed down a little and the sky had turned a dull gray. Dawn was not far. Mira followed him outside, her breath forming white clouds in the cold air. The trees looked silent now, covered in white layers. Rex started running down the slope, back toward where they had found her father. Mira followed as fast as she could, calling after him. Rex, wait! Her boots sank into the snow and her legs hurt, but she didn't stop. Something inside her told her to trust Rex. When they reached the same fallen tree, Mira saw the place where her father had been lying. The snow was disturbed, but he was gone. Her eyes widened. Papa, she shouted, looking around. There was no answer. Only the soft sound of wind passing through the trees. Rex walked in circles, sniffing the ground again. He barked once, then twice, and began running toward another direction, up the slope toward the mountain ridge. Mira's heart raced. Rex, where are you going? He didn't look back. His tail was high and his steps were fast. Mira followed, clutching the flashlight tightly. After a few minutes of climbing, they reached a narrow path between the trees. There, lying against a rock, was Mira's father. He was half covered in snow but breathing faintly. His face was pale and his hand was pressed against his leg, which looked injured. Mira cried out in relief. "Papa!" She ran to him and knelt beside him. His eyes opened slowly when he heard her voice. "Mira," he whispered weakly. "You shouldn't be here. It's too cold." Tears filled her eyes. "Rex brought me. We found you. Help is coming." Her father tried to smile, but he was too weak. "Good boy, Rex," he murmured. The dog sat beside him, wagging his tail slightly. Mira took off her coat and wrapped it around her father's shoulders. "We'll stay with you until they come." But as time passed, the cold grew worse. The snow started falling again, lighter but steady. Mira tried to call the rangers on the radio, but the signal was weak here. Only static came through. She looked at Rex, who was staring down the mountain path. He barked once, low and deep, and then looked back at her. "You want to go?" she asked. Rex barked again. Mira understood. Rex wanted to guide the rescue team to them. Her father nodded faintly. "Let him go. He knows the way." Mira hugged Rex tightly before letting him leave. "Go, Rex, bring help." Rex barked one last time and took off into the snow. His strong legs carried him quickly down the slope. The storm wind blew against him, but he didn't stop. His mission was clear. He ran through the forest, his senses sharp. He followed the trail back toward the village. The snow had covered most of the old tracks, but Rex's training guided him. He knew how to find paths even in blizzards. Meanwhile, back near the ranger post, the rescue team was preparing their equipment. They had snowmobiles, warm blankets, and first aid kits. The rangers were worried because the storm had damaged their signal systems. They could not locate the exact spot Mira had described. Then one of them noticed movement near the trees. A dark shape was running toward them through the snow. "It's a dog," one ranger said. As the figure came closer, another man gasped. "That's Rex, the rescue dog." Rex reached them, barking loudly. He ran in circles, then turned back toward the forest, looking at them expectantly. One ranger understood immediately. "He's guiding us. Follow him." They started their engines and followed Rex through the thick snow. The brave dog led the way, never slowing down. His paws sank deep, his fur was wet, but he kept going. Back on the mountain, Mira sat beside her father, rubbing his hands to keep him warm. He looked at her weakly. "You're a brave girl, Mira, just like your mother." Mira smiled through her tears. "I learned from you and Rex." Minutes passed like hours. Then in the distance she heard the faint sound of engines. Her heart leaped. She stood up and waved the flashlight in the air. "Here, we're here." Rex appeared first, running toward her, followed by the rescue team on snowmobiles. The rangers jumped off and hurried to her father. "Are you all right, little one?" one of them asked. Mira nodded quickly. "My father needs help. Please save him." The rangers worked fast. They wrapped her father in blankets, gave him warm fluids, and placed him on a stretcher. All the while, Rex stood nearby, his eyes watching carefully. One ranger looked at the dog with admiration. He found them both. "In this storm. Unbelievable." Mira held Rex close. "He's the best dog in the world." When they reached the village, the people came out to see what had happened. They were shocked to see the rescue team returning safely through the storm. Mira's mother, who had come back from the hospital early, ran forward. She hugged Mira tightly, tears falling down her cheeks. "Mira, my sweet girl, you're safe." Mira smiled and pointed at Rex. "Rex saved us, Mama. He led me through the night." Her mother looked at the dog with amazement. "Thank you, brave one." Rex wagged his tail, his eyes calm and gentle. The rescue team carried Mira's father to the village clinic. The doctor said he would recover soon. Everyone in the village was amazed at how a dog had led a little girl through a deadly storm to save a man's life. That night, when the storm finally ended, Mira sat beside Rex by the fire. She stroked his head softly. "You're not just a rescue dog," she said. "You're part of our family." Rex closed his eyes, resting peacefully, but his ears stayed alert, as if he was always ready for the next call for help. No one in the village knew that Rex's actions that night were not finished yet. Something more was waiting to be discovered. Something that would leave everyone even more stunned. Morning light spread slowly across the snow-covered village. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a world of white silence. The trees stood tall with heavy snow on their branches, and rooftops shone under the weak sun. People stepped out of their houses, talking about the brave dog and the little girl who had survived the long, cold night. Mira woke up in her bed, warm and safe for the first time in many hours. Her mother sat beside her, brushing her hair gently. "How are you feeling, my love?" she asked softly. "I'm fine, Mama," Mira said with a small smile. "Is Papa all right?" Her mother nodded. "He's resting in the clinic. The doctor said he will recover soon." "You were so brave, Mira. Everyone is talking about how you and Rex made it through the storm." Mira looked toward the window where Rex was sleeping on a rug. His fur was still damp, and there was a small bandage on his leg from a cut he had gotten during the rescue. Yet his breathing was calm and his tail moved slightly whenever someone came near him. "He saved us," Mira said proudly. "He never gave up," her mother smiled. "He's special, Mira. Very few dogs can do what he did." Later that morning, the village rangers came to visit. One of them, an older man named Thomas, carried a small bag with supplies. He knelt beside Rex and checked his leg. "You did well, old friend," Thomas said kindly. "You still remember your training, don't you?" Rex opened his eyes and wagged his tail. Thomas looked at Mira. "You know, this dog once led a rescue team through the mountains during a terrible storm, just like last night. He saved 4 people that time. After that, everyone called him the Heart of the Hills." Mira's eyes grew wide. "The Heart of the Hills? That sounds like a hero's name," Thomas chuckled. "He is one. I never thought I'd see him in action again, but it looks like he still has the heart of a rescuer." As the day passed, the story of Rex spread beyond the village. Reporters and people from nearby towns started coming to see the brave canine, who had saved a man and a child in the storm. Mira didn't like all the noise and attention, but she stayed beside Rex to make sure he was comfortable. That evening, something unexpected happened. A man in a dark green coat arrived in a snow jeep. He introduced himself as Captain Leon from the Mountain Rescue Department. He had come to thank Rex in person. He entered the small house and greeted Mira and her mother politely. When he saw Rex, he knelt and placed his hand gently on the dog's head. "So it's true," the captain said with a smile. "The old rescue dog came back to duty one last time." Mira's mother offered him tea. "We're very grateful for what he did. Without him, my husband and daughter would not be here." The captain nodded. "Rex has always been special. But there's something more I must tell you." Mira and her mother looked at him curiously. The captain continued. "Years ago, before he retired, Rex was part of a search mission. A cargo helicopter crashed deep in the northern mountains during a storm. The team could not recover everything from the site. Rex led the way and found survivors, but before they could return for the rest, another storm buried the entire area under snow. We marked it as unreachable." Mira frowned. "What was in that helicopter?" "Important equipment and documents," the captain said. "Nothing dangerous but valuable. We never found it again." Mira looked at Rex, who was now awake and staring at the captain. His ears were alert and his body was tense, as if he understood what they were talking about. The captain noticed it too. "He remembers," he said quietly. "These dogs have sharp memories. The storm last night may have stirred something inside him." Mira reached out and stroked Rex's neck gently. "Do you remember, boy? Do you know where it is?" Rex stood up slowly, walked to the door and looked outside toward the mountains. His tail moved slightly and he gave a single bark. The captain's eyes widened. "He wants to go." Mira's mother shook her head. "It's too dangerous. He just came back from a rescue." But the captain said calmly, "He won't rest until he finishes what he started. Dogs like him have duty in their hearts. I'll organize a small team. If he can lead us to that old crash site, it could solve a mystery we've had for years." Mira looked at her mother, then back at Rex. "Can I go too?" Her mother hesitated, but Captain Leon smiled. "You were brave enough to face the storm, but this time it's better if you stay here. The mountain can be cruel." Mira sighed and hugged Rex tightly. "Please be careful. Come back safe." Early the next morning, Captain Leon and 2 rangers prepared their gear. Rex stood beside them wearing a small harness with a tracker. His eyes were sharp and his posture steady. The villagers gathered to see them off. Thomas said, "If there's anyone who can find that lost place, it's Rex." The team set out toward the northern ridge, following the faint path through the snow. Rex walked ahead confidently, sniffing the ground and occasionally pausing to check the air. The men followed quietly behind, trusting his instincts. The sun was hidden behind thick gray clouds. Snow began to fall again, soft but steady. The higher they climbed, the quieter everything became. Only the sound of crunching snow and Rex's steady breathing filled the air. After several hours, Rex stopped near a cluster of pine trees. He sniffed around and started digging in the snow. The men joined him, clearing the spot. Soon they uncovered a piece of metal with faded letters. Captain Leon bent down and brushed the snow off it. The letters formed a word. Aurora. That's it, the captain whispered. That's the name of the lost helicopter. Rex barked and began moving forward, leading them deeper into the trees. The snow grew thicker, but he didn't slow down. His paws found the old trail buried for years. After another hour, they reached a wide open area surrounded by fallen trees. There, half buried under layers of snow, was the broken body of the old helicopter. The paint was faded, and the windows were cracked, but it was still recognizable. The men stood in silence for a moment. The captain finally said, "You found it, Rex. You did it again." They began searching the wreckage carefully. Inside, they found frozen metal boxes, broken seats, and scattered supplies. Near one of the boxes, they discovered something strange, a small wooden crate marked with red paint. "What's this?" one ranger asked. The captain opened the crate carefully. Inside were several thick envelopes, each sealed and marked with old government symbols. He stared at them for a moment, then said quietly, "These are the missing weather records. This data could explain the storm patterns that destroyed half the valley years ago." The men packed the items carefully and began the journey back to the village. Rex led the way again, strong and calm. Even as the snow deepened, he walked without hesitation. When they returned, the villagers cheered. Mira ran to Rex and hugged him tightly. "You found something again, didn't you?" she asked. Captain Leon smiled. "Yes. Your dog just solved a mystery that's been frozen in time for years." Mira looked up at Rex proudly. "You're amazing." That evening, as the sun set behind the white hills, Mira sat beside Rex by the fire again. He rested his head on her lap, tired but peaceful. "Everyone says you're a hero," she whispered. "But to me, you're more than that. Your family." Rex's tail moved softly and he closed his eyes. Outside, the village lights glowed in the snow, unaware that the brave dog's story was still not over. Something hidden within that old helicopter would soon reveal an even deeper secret, one that would leave everyone truly stunned. The next morning, the village was full of excitement. The lost helicopter had been found after many years, and everyone was talking about Rex, the brave K9 dog who had led the team to it. Reporters from nearby towns came with cameras, and the mayor himself visited the small house where Mira lived. Rex sat quietly on the porch while people took pictures and praised him. Mira stayed beside him, proud but also worried. She knew he didn't like noise and crowds. He had always been calm and serious, never showing off even when everyone called him a hero. Her mother stood near the doorway, talking to Captain Leon and the mayor. They were discussing the discovery from the old helicopter. The sealed envelopes they had found contained weather records, but there was also something else inside the wooden crate that no one had opened yet. Captain Leon placed the crate on the table and said, "We brought this from the crash site, but we haven't looked inside it yet. The box is frozen and hard to open. We think it might contain something more than papers." The mayor nodded. "Then we should open it carefully. The contents could be important." Mira watched with curiosity. The crate looked old, its sides covered in frost. Captain Leon used a small tool to pry the lid open. Inside, under a layer of ice, lay a metal cylinder wrapped in cloth. He lifted it slowly and wiped the frost away. There were strange markings on the metal surface. "What is it?" Mira asked. Leon shook his head. "I'm not sure. It looks like a weather sensor, but these symbols don't match any of our equipment." The mayor frowned. "Could it be dangerous?" Leon studied it closely. "I don't think so. It seems more like a data storage container." As they discussed it, Rex stood up suddenly. His ears twitched and he began to sniff the air. His body stiffened. He walked toward the table and stared at the cylinder. Then he growled softly, not in anger, but as if he sensed something strange. Mira touched his back. "What's wrong, boy?" Rex didn't move. He kept staring at the object. The air in the room felt colder than before. Even Captain Leon noticed it. "Mira," he said gently, "please take Rex outside for a bit. We'll examine this in the ranger's cabin where we have proper tools." Mira nodded and led Rex outside. The sky was cloudy again and the wind carried small snowflakes. She walked toward the edge of the village where everything was quiet. Rex stayed close to her side, his eyes scanning the distant hills. "You did something great, Rex," she said softly. "Everyone's proud of you." Rex looked at her, then turned his head toward the mountains again. His tail moved slowly, as if he felt something unfinished. Back in the ranger cabin, Captain Leon placed the metal cylinder on a table and began to clean it. Thomas, the older ranger, stood beside him. "This looks like an experimental device," Thomas said. "Maybe it belonged to the scientists who were on that helicopter." Leon nodded. "That's what I'm thinking too. The question is, why was it sealed like this?" He found a small latch on the side and carefully opened it. Inside the cylinder were several thin metal plates with markings similar to maps. They showed the mountain ranges, but there was one marked area deeper into the forest with a strange symbol. Thomas pointed at it. "That symbol wasn't on any of our maps." Leon stared at it for a long time. "We should check it. Maybe the scientists discovered something before the crash." By evening, the Rangers decided to form a small group to investigate the marked location the next morning. They informed Mira's mother about it. Mira listened quietly, her hand resting on Rex's back. She had a strange feeling that Rex already knew about that place. Every time someone mentioned the mountain forest, Rex's ears lifted. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She looked out the window at the snowy hills. The moonlight fell softly on the white ground. Rex sat near the door, awake, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Are you thinking about that place too?" she whispered. Rex blinked slowly as if saying yes. She got out of bed, put on her coat, and knelt beside him. "You want to go, don't you?" He stood up and wagged his tail once. Mira knew she shouldn't leave the house, but something told her that Rex needed her. She grabbed the flashlight and quietly opened the door. Together they stepped into the cold night. The air was calm and the stars shone brightly. The snow crunched under their feet as they walked toward the forest. Rex moved with purpose, leading the way. Mira followed closely, trusting him completely. They walked for almost an hour. The trees grew taller and the ground sloped upward. Then Rex stopped near a frozen stream. He sniffed the ground and began to dig near a rock. Mira knelt beside him. "What are you looking for?" After a few moments, she saw a glimmer of metal under the snow. They cleared it away and found a small round object buried in the ice. It looked similar to the metal cylinder from the crate. Mira picked it up carefully. "This looks like the same thing the Rangers found." Rex barked once, short and low. He sniffed it and then looked toward the forest's deeper side. Mira turned her flashlight in that direction and saw faint shapes of rocks ahead. She took a few steps forward, but then she heard distant voices calling her name. "Mira, Mira, where are you?" It was Captain Leon and the Rangers. They had noticed she was missing and had followed her tracks. Mira waved her flashlight. "Over here." They reached her within minutes. Leon looked both surprised and worried. "Mira, what are you doing here?" "It's dangerous at night. I followed Rex," she explained quickly. "He brought me here. We found this." She held out the small metal object. Leon took it and examined it. His eyes widened slightly. "This is another part of the same device," Tomas said quietly. "That means there's more buried here." The men started searching the area. They used their tools to dig through the snow and ice. Soon they uncovered several more metal pieces, all connected by broken wires. It looked like a system that had been placed underground many years ago. Leon stepped back and said, "These were weather sensors, but why would they be hidden so deep in the forest?" Thomas looked around. Maybe the scientists were studying something secret. As they continued searching, they found a metal plate with faded words. It read, "Project Frostline, do not disturb." Leon whispered, "Project Frostline. I've heard that name before." It was a weather experiment meant to control snow patterns. It was shut down after the crash. Mira looked at him with wide eyes. "Does that mean the storm was caused by this?" Leon nodded slowly. "It could be. If these devices were still active under the snow, they might have affected the weather." Thomas turned to Rex, who was standing quietly near the stream. "You led us to the truth again, boy." Rex wagged his tail softly. The team gathered the devices carefully and started back toward the village. Mira walked beside Rex, holding his fur for warmth. She looked up at him and said, "You knew all along, didn't you?" Rex looked ahead, his eyes fixed on the path. When they returned, the mayor and the villagers listened in shock as Captain Leon explained what they had found. The project had been forgotten for years, but the devices buried deep in the mountain had kept running, affecting the local weather. Everyone was amazed that the truth had come to light because of a dog's instinct. That night, as snow gently fell again, Mira sat beside Rex by the fire. She whispered, "You found Papa. You found the lost helicopter, and now you found the secret that caused all this. How do you always know what to do?" Rex rested his head on her lap and closed his eyes. His job was never about fame or praise. It was about helping and protecting, just as he had always done. But unknown to everyone, one last secret was still hidden beneath the mountains. And soon Rex would lead them to something that would change everything forever. The morning light broke slowly over the frozen forest. A thin line of gold stretched across the white landscape, shining on the small cabin where Mina rested under a heavy blanket. The storm had finally ended, leaving the world silent and still. Snow hung on the branches like cotton, and the air smelled clean and new. Rex lay near the door, his eyes half open. His fur was covered in frost, but his tail moved a little when Mina stirred. The girl blinked, confused at first, then remembered everything. The storm, the forest, the fall, and how Rex had found her. She smiled weakly and reached out a hand toward him. "Good morning, Rex," she whispered. The dog raised his head and gave a short bark. The sound echoed softly inside the cabin. Mina laughed and felt a strange peace in her heart. For the first time since the snow began, she was not afraid. Outside, Mr. Thomas pushed open the cabin door. His face looked tired but full of relief. Behind him came 2 rescue officers from the nearby town. They carried medical bags and wore heavy coats. "How's our little hero doing?" Mr. Thomas asked, smiling at Mina. "She's better," said one of the officers. "Her temperature is normal now. She's lucky the dog found her when he did." Mina looked up at them with wide eyes. "Did my parents come?" she asked softly. Mr. Thomas nodded. "They're on the way. The snow delayed them, but they'll be here soon." Mina's lips trembled. "I thought they would never find me." "They would never stop looking," he said. "And neither would Rex." Rex barked again, as if agreeing with him. Everyone smiled. They gave Mina warm soup and wrapped her in another blanket. She watched as Rex sat near the fire, his golden eyes calm. He looked proud but also tired, as if he had done something far greater than anyone understood. When Mina's parents finally arrived, the cabin filled with emotion. Her mother ran to her and held her tightly, crying softly. Her father stood behind them, eyes wet, unable to speak for a moment. "Thank you," her mother said to Mr. Thomas and the officers. "Thank you for saving our daughter." "It wasn't us," Mr. Thomas said quietly. "It was Rex." Mina's father knelt beside the dog. "You saved her?" he whispered, touching Rex's head. "You brave boy." Rex wagged his tail, his eyes glowing warmly. The moment felt almost magical. The rescue team helped them back to town. The roads were still slippery and the wind was cold, but Mina held Rex close the whole way. She didn't care about the cold anymore. She just wanted to stay beside her brave friend. When they reached the town, everyone had already heard the story. People gathered around, whispering and pointing. They had heard about the little girl lost in the storm, and the dog who led rescuers straight to her. Some called it luck. Others said it was something more. At the small clinic, Mina was checked by a doctor. He said she would recover completely. Her parents thanked the officers again and again. But the one who received the most love that day was Rex. Children from the neighborhood came to see him. The mayor of the town even arrived that evening, bringing a medal with a red ribbon. He placed it around Rex's neck and said, "This dog has done what no human could do. He found hope in the coldest night." Everyone clapped and Mina smiled proudly. "He's my hero," she said. "He saved me." That night, when the crowd went home and the noise faded, Mina sat quietly beside Rex in her room. The medal gleamed softly in the lamp's light. She stroked his fur gently. "Rex," she whispered, "how did you know where I was?" Rex looked at her and gave a soft sound. His eyes were calm and full of something deep, something that words could never explain. Mina smiled again and said, "Maybe you didn't just follow my trail. Maybe you followed my heart." The dog leaned his head against her leg as if agreeing. In the days that followed, Mina and her family visited Mr. Thomas to thank him again. He told them something that surprised everyone. "You know," he said, "this wasn't the first time Rex did something like this. Last winter, he led a rescue team to an old man who had fallen in the woods. He always seems to know where to go." Mina's father looked amazed. "How does he do that?" Mr. Thomas shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe he senses what others can't. Maybe he feels life even through the snow." That evening, news reporters came to film a short story about Rex. They called him the miracle dog of Snow Valley. Mina stood beside him during the interview, shy but proud. When they asked her what she wanted to say to the people watching, she smiled and answered simply, "Always believe in kindness. It can save lives." Weeks passed. The snow began to melt and spring arrived slowly. But the memory of that night stayed strong in everyone's heart. The town built a small statue near the main square, a bronze figure of a dog standing alert, looking toward the mountains. At the base of it, the plaque read, "Rex, the guide in the snow, the heart that never gave up." Mina often visited that place after school. She would sit near the statue with Rex lying beside her. She would bring him treats and whisper stories about her day. People passing by always smiled when they saw them. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Mina's father said, "You know, Mina, when we thought we lost you, everything stopped for us. But that dog brought you back. He gave us our life again." Mina looked at Rex, who was chasing snowflakes in the yard. "I think he's more than just a dog," she said softly. "He's family," Rex barked as if he had heard her words. And that night, when Mina lay in bed, she dreamed of walking again through the snow, not lost, not afraid, but side by side with her loyal friend. The forest no longer felt cold. The stars above were bright and peaceful. The world had been silent that snowy night, but it was not empty. It had been waiting for a bond of courage and love to shine through the storm. Rex had found her, but in truth, they had found each other. From that day on, whenever snow began to fall, the people of Snow Valley would tell their children the story of a little girl and her brave canine companion. They said that even in the darkest night, a light of loyalty can guide the way home, and Rex, the hero of that story, would still sit by the window of Mina's house, watching the flakes fall calm and strong, guarding the family he had saved. The snow would come and go, the seasons would change, but his heart, the heart of a true protector, never would.